Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. The mindset that we bring to any situation plays a key part in overcoming challenges and really enjoying our unique paths in life. On Thoughtful Thursdays, I like to explore emotional topics that are relevant to CRNAs and other providers. I think of this as my therapy, and I hope you learn some tips and tricks that you can use along your own journey. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today, and now on with the show. Welcome to Thoughtful Thursdays on the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and as always, I'd like to start these things off with a quote that gets me thinking. Demi Lovato once said, "I think scars are like battle wounds, beautiful in a way. They show what you've been through and how strong you are for coming out of it." Now, for those of you who don't know, today is World Kidney Day, a global campaign to raise awareness about the importance of our kidneys to our overall health, with the idea of reducing the frequency and impact of kidney disease worldwide. This is particularly meaningful to me because, as some of you may know, my mom had a kidney transplant last November after being on dialysis for a little under a year. While my mom's body is continuing to adjust to the presence of a new kidney, she's had to endure becoming a pincushion. Weekly and biweekly appointments with blood draws, shots to boost her white blood cell count, and numerous changes to her medication regimen are all part of the process once you have a new kidney. But throughout it all, she remains one of the most fearlessly optimistic people that I know. Sure, she has some scars and has fought some battles. No one would have questioned her for becoming depressed or doubting the path forward, but that's just not how my mom operates. But for all of her strength, there's a larger point that I wanted to touch on. You see, kidney disease forced my mom to retire a couple of years earlier than she had actually planned on. She actually really enjoyed her work, but realized that it was becoming more and more difficult to make that hour-long commute, much less concentrate once she actually started working. Her health forced her into retirement at the age of 59. Fortunately now, she had worked nearly 30 years for the federal government, so she has a good pension and health insurance that covers everything that she needs. But not everyone is quite so lucky in this regard. Even so, her retirement has been filled with doctor's appointments, dialysis appointments, surgeries, and more doctor's appointments to this point. She just doesn't have the time or energy for any kind of a job anymore, and she can't really go on a whole lot of vacations at this point. Now, you just never know what the future holds. I mean, if you were struck by tragedy, would you be able to move away from your career to accommodate that? My mom was able to retire in a position of strength because of her many years of service. But what if this had happened to her 5, 10, or even 15 years earlier? She was completely reliant upon her career, which is more of a gamble than most people want to admit that it is. Now, what have I learned from seeing this experience firsthand? Well, first off, it reinforced what I was already beginning to see all around me. Many people still have the mentality of workers in the 1960s, and that a workplace will take care of you if you just put your time in. Unfortunately, that's just not the reality of the world we live in. Statistics vary, but the average person changes careers between 5 to 7 times during their lifetime. And that's careers, not jobs. The job changes clock in between 12 to 17 times in a lifetime, with the average stay with an employer being around 4 years long. Yes, this is much more common in your early years than later, but that's still quite a lot of change to plan for. Plus, that's an average, meaning that there's a bell curve here. You may find yourself with more or less depending on your own inclinations. Now, many of us talk about planning for the unexpected. Growing up a military brat, this took on a different meaning for me. I loved military history, and I was fascinated by the battle plans and movement of troops and supplies. From a military perspective, planning for the unexpected literally means planning for battle. And sure, you're likely going to get scars and lose some troops or equipment during a skirmish, but a good plan can carry you through the toughest of times. When we face adversity outside of the military, we have a better chance to get through it when we don't have to worry about our finances. Currently, 56% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency expense. Now, I know that most of the folks listening here have good careers in healthcare, but more than a few professionals were caught off guard financially when the pandemic took away their pay for 4 to 6 weeks. Now, imagine you have an illness that takes you out for 6 months. Or like my neighbors down the street, your house catches fire and is unrecoverable. How much PTO can you take to handle those scenarios? I mean, they can truly happen to anyone. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for anyone. And that's why I work hard to provide completely passive opportunities for you to build side incomes and wealth through alternative investing. Not everyone is as lucky as my mom to have a comfortable pension. Most of us will never have that, but it's not too late. Life is sure to leave its share of battle scars on you, but you can plan ahead for those unexpected moments in your life. This is the big reason why I harp on creating a plan B for yourself. It's not about quitting your job. It's about securing your own freedom to choose what you do with your time. Time is not promised to us, and I want the option to start enjoying life right now while I have my health. I've decided to train for a 2.5 marathon, a task that I've put off for a decade now. I want to enjoy my kids while they're at home instead of working all the time. I want to have random lunch dates with my beautiful wife and go bowling in the middle of the day. I want to take extended family vacations without worrying about conflicting work schedules. So my challenge to you is to take a good hard look at your own finances, your own lifestyle, and figure out how much of a hit you can really take before getting squeezed. What's your cash flow coming in and going out every month? How can you widen that gap without working yourself to death? How can you use money to give you more of your time rather than spending more time to just make more money? That's the problem that you ultimately have to solve. Getting your money to work for you. Developing a path toward creating cash flow that doesn't depend on your working career. Get yourself battle ready. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd rather be prepared for the war that never comes than unprepared for the one that does. And to finish up, I just have to say that my mom is one of the strongest people I know. But even she'll tell you that she was simply lucky to have chosen her given career. She is the exception in her family rather than the rule in that regard. But you don't have to let luck decide your fate. Doing things that are different than the norm takes a special kind of strength. But I believe that if you're listening to this show, then you're on the right path already to finding that strength and financial security. That's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure that you hit subscribe and leave a review. I'd love to hear what you thought of the show today. Until next time, though, be safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by On Call Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find On Call Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.